And here with us now from Capitol Hill, Republican Senator from Oklahoma, Senator Tom Coburn. Good to have you back.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Did you hear Senator Boxer? And do you have a response?
I actually heard her yesterday and this morning. I've heard it before. Remember, in 2010, everybody said you can't dare let guns go into the national parks. And of course, the rapes, murders, robberies, and assaults are down about 85% since we did that. And now, everywhere in the United States, if you're following your state laws, you can carry your gun to either protect yourself or whatever. The fact is violence has decreased, safety is up, and the only place you can't do that is on Corps land. Corps land has more visitors, more rapes, more murders, more violence than we ever had in the parks. But we can't, for some reason, they don't want us to be able to express a Second Amendment right. So we ought to harmonize what the public policy is, whether it's Bureau of Reclamation, Forest Service, national parks, all the BLM land, Bureau of Land Management. You can now follow your state laws on those lands.
So, hey, Tom, what's your response to Senator Boxer saying, well, we should just talk about resources and not talk about divisive issues like guns in this bill? Is this the appropriate place to put this amendment?
Yeah, and they were very good to allow me an amendment. And the reason they did is because Harry denied me an amendment on the gun bill on one that would have passed and actually solved the problem, which he promised to give me. And so I think, the fact is we ought to be worried about making sure that people who shouldn't have guns, people on the do not buy list, don't get them, rather than restricting people who are good, great citizens from carrying out their own responsibilities and expressing their Second Amendment rights. And so I'll eventually get this amendment. It took me 2 times to get the parks and the Forest Service, and I'll eventually get it because it makes sense. And what I'll do is publicize every rape that goes on in Corps land and every murder, and I'll say these wouldn't have happened, or a good portion of them wouldn't have happened if we'd have passed this amendment. So we'll eventually get there.
Obviously, on the Hill, a lot of people talking about the hearings, the Benghazi hearings yesterday. What's your take on what you learned from the State Department officials?
Well, I think the State Department has real trouble. Having sat on the Intelligence Committee and seen the review of emails that went back and forth as they developed the list, there's a glaring problem there that will eventually come out, and I can't talk about it now, but there was an omission that was given to the Intelligence Committee.
Well, can you talk around it a little more?
I can't.
What do you mean?
I cannot do that and keep my obligation to what I can't talk about other than say that I think there was a glaring omission in terms of what was submitted to the Intelligence Committee. And
that'll come out later, obviously. Okay, well, I guess that just leaves us with talking about why he shaved his beard.
Yeah.
Now let's talk actually about. What's that?
It's a mystery. I can't wait to hear it.
Well, we're going to hear about it, and we're going to figure out. I guess it's spring, and it gets warmer, so he shaves his beard.
That could
every
be
spring.
That's not the mystery I'm talking about.
Oh,
okay.
I thought you were talking about that mystery. So Tom, let's talk about what I love talking to you about, and that is the grand bargain, the possibility that we're going to act responsibly about the debt, the long-term debt. We've talked about a lot of other issues, Benghazi and guns, and you name it. There are 1,000 other issues going. You and I both know in the long run, it's the debt that's going to determine how this country looks, how our children live 20 years from now economically. Where are we?
Well, we're having more discussions. There's more communication between the White House and members of the Senate than there ever have been before. I think the president sincerely wants to get a big deal. I think he understands. Joe and Mika, this country is posed to boom if, in fact, we'd restore the confidence with the leadership that's here in Washington. It's primed. We're primed from both a competitiveness standpoint, primed from an energy standpoint, primed from a capital sitting on the sidelines. All we need is confidence and leadership.
So you're excited about America. We have so many declinists talking about how America's best days are behind us. You, I guess, like me, you're excited about America's economic future. Things do look pretty good for us, don't they, in the long run?
If we actually make the hard choices. If we continue to ignore the hard choices, then they won't. Look, we've got $86 trillion in unfunded liabilities, and we got net assets of the whole country of $83 trillion. That's all the private assets. So we're already broke as a nation. The question is can we grow out of that? Can we make changes? Can we reform the tax code? Be fair. Reform the tax code. Can we save Medicare and improve it? Can we secure Social Security? We can do all those things. Everybody knows what needs to be done. The question is there's a lack of leadership to get it done. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do, regardless of party or principle, to try to solve the problem. And I think my hope is, and I believe it to be true, that the president really wants to solve this, and I look forward to working with him on it.
Walter Isaacson's here. He's got a question not about your beard. Walter.
You know, we're talking about historically, why is it harder to get things done these days? And there seems to be almost, to me, a tie between a gun amendment to a water rights bill or not getting a grand bargain on out of the Finance Committee. And it's partly because we don't do things on Capitol Hill the way we used to, which is a regular order business. Committees actually work together, have to put out bills, et cetera. Yeah. And I was wondering what Senator Coburn thought about changing back the way we do business on Capitol Hill to get more close to the regular order of business, the committee structures, so that things are less partisan and done more in committee.
Well, that's easily done. What you do is you have a majority leader that doesn't try to make every bill something that creates a political advantage. I mean, look at the Word of Bill. The Word of Bill is not being run by Harry Reid. It's being run by Barbara Boxer and David Vitter. They're going to negotiate a deal, and we're going to get through that bill. It's going to get done, and it came through committee. And the problem is most of the bills that come to the floor don't come through committee because they want a partisan outcome, and the chairmen, who are not my party, they don't want to play that game. So as long as the Senate is being used for the 2014 election, and that's the primary goal, that's why it's disintegrating.
Do you really think that's what's happening right now?
I think that has been Harry Reid's mode of operation in the last 7 years. Yes, sir.
Do you really?
He used it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He has been dishonest with me, not truthful, not kept his word. He's played games. You know, we've done our own. We've done our own damage to that in response to it. So what we have is people pointing fingers at each other. What we need is same thing. We need leadership that said the majority leader is going to run the Senate, let the committees operate, put it on the floor until cloture's invoked. Anything's fair game. I mean, the whole idea of the Senate was to allow anything so it could be discussed, so the American people could see what's going on. Why should we say 1 out of 100? That's why it's different than the House. Why should you be limited in your ability to discuss and offer and try to change a bill, whether it's germane or not? There comes a time when you can't do non-germane amendments. But with Walter's question, the presumption is that you should never be able to offer a non-germane amendment to a bill, even though it's important. Well, and you should. The Senate history is full of that.
Right. You've been in Washington for almost 20 years now, off and on. Do you think what Harry Reid is doing is different from what other majority leaders have done in the past?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How?
Yeah, well, the first 2 years here, I was here. Let me give you an example. Remember the Bridge to Nowhere?
Yeah.
All right, I offered that amendment. That was against a Republican colleague, 2 Republican colleagues, matter of fact. They could have objected to that amendment. They didn't object to the amendment being offered. They could have stopped it right then by objecting, but they knew if they did, then that would unwind the Senate. So what happened is Ted Stevens, for a period of time, tried to keep us in quorum call, and then eventually, boom, and he won the amendment, 86-14. He beat me. But the point is think where we would have been on earmarks had we not ever offered that amendment, non-germane as it was.
And so before we go, let's follow up on what Walter said, and I agree completely about the fact there's not regular order up there, which is for people that aren't familiar with the workings of Congress, that you've got committees that look at bills, and they pass them, it goes to the floor, and you go through this regular order. And it's how Congress works. It's how Washington works. I hear more Democrats and more Republicans, rank and file Democrats and Republicans, complain about 90% of them that are up there in the House and the Senate, complaining that Congress doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, that you have these crises, and 3 or 4 people go into back rooms, they make deals, that exclude 90% of the membership.
Well, Joe, I'd make this point to you. Not many U.S. senators voluntarily leave the Finance Committee. I did. You know why? Because of the 2 years I was on it, with all the problems in front of our country, we did not one thing to solve Medicare, solve Social Security, solve Medicaid, overhaul the tax structure, fix our corporate tax rate so we're competitive. We didn't do anything. Well, that's leadership. And what my big complaint is, Harry Reid is a nice guy. I like him. But I think he has been a failure as a majority leader for the Senate in terms of keeping the history of the Senate and the progress of the Senate in line with what it was intended to be by our founders.
Okay.
All right.
Senator Tom Coburn, thank you very much. We're looking for a response to that.
Great to have you on.
I'm sure you'll get one.
Get one.
Yeah, I think you'll get one. And by the way, Mark Sanford's coming your way. Make sure that you keep your wallet in your back pocket, because he'll make you. We're talking about Lindsay, cheapest man on Capitol Hill in the past.
Very wealthy, but
he doesn't spend his money.
he doesn't like to share it. No.
I don't think he's gonna. So you got to buy your own meals.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Greatly appreciate it. He's not going to comment on Mark Sanford going back to Washington. Lindsay took the bait yesterday. Walter, what you're saying, though, is so important. If you want to know why Congress is dysfunctional, talk to 90% of the congressmen, congresswomen,
They
senators.
all say it, especially.
They want to leave because there's not regular order anymore. They can't do their jobs.
And when I first came up, you can read the Robert Caro book on Lyndon Johnson years. You can do it all the way through.
Yeah.
You had great committee chairmen, and they would have to have bipartisan bills. It would have to be, the ranking member and the committee chair.
Yeah.
And then they'd pull it together and would go to the floor. That is what I think has helped destroy the ability of Congress to get things done.
Right.
Is they've abandoned this structure where people sort of found a way to get a bill out of committee and then vote on it on the floor.
And as Tom said, you used to have a Senate where a Democrat or Republican knew, if I gunk up the works here, it's going to come back around to get me. We've got to figure out how to work together, whether we win or lose the vote. So,
and as he said, there are a few examples of it now. David Vitter's bill on the banks.
Yep.
That's done in committee in a bipartisan way.
Yep, no doubt about it. Hey, we're going to get some science coming up next behind Mika's new book, Obsessed with the Director.